guys, welcome back. I hope you are fine and taking care of yourselves. Today I just want to do a little book haul. I haven't done this in a while now, but I've recently acquired secondhand books. I'm trying to almost exclusively buy secondhand books this year, so I thought I would show you what I picked up recently, and I have 7 books in total to talk to you about, so let's get going. The first one I want to mention is called Wishing on the Moon by Donald Clarke, and this is a biography of Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday is a very famous jazz singer, and you might remember from my One Book, One Song video that I made last year that I'm a massive fan of hers, and I actually don't know that much about her life specifically, and this book was recommended to me by Summer, which I will link down below, and she kindly recommended this to me, and I am really intrigued to read this book. It's talking about obviously Billie Holiday's life, her growing up in poverty in Baltimore and then moving to Harlem, and how she came to becoming a famous singer. And yeah, I'm really intrigued because I also hope that it will touch on obviously her growing up in very difficult circumstances, and hopefully also touch on racism and how she lived her life as a Black woman in America in the 1930s. So yeah, really excited to read this one. The next 2 books are books from authors I've previously read books of and really enjoyed. And so when I saw that these books were on the site that I found them, I was really excited and wanted to give these authors another go. The first one is Jackie Kay, and I read her autobiography, Red Dust Road, and it was amazing. And she's an author that talks a lot about identity and what defines you and what defines your identity and what happens when your identity is built up of different aspects and is not really easily definable. And I just love, in general, this theme and these discussions. And I've heard that her novel Trumpet also deals with this idea of what is one's identity. This is about a fictional jazz musician, Joss Moody, and when he dies, there's this secret that is lifted about him, and his adoptive son is trying to come to terms with it and also try to understand his adoptive father better, and realizing that he is not the person he thought he was. And so this sounds really fascinating as well. The other author I definitely want to read more of in the future is John Wyndham. I recently read The Midwich Cuckoos and absolutely loved it. I love his writing style. It's very reminiscent of H.G. Wells, and he has a lot of books that are crossovers between sci-fi and dystopian or horror, and I really love that. So I picked up The Kraken Wakes by him. And I was drawn to this because it deals with how humans come to terms or can do something about a situation in which their existence is threatened. So this is a sci-fi horror book in which ships start to mysteriously sink in the ocean, and the ocean levels are rising. And I think it follows 2 journalists who are trying to record the events and kind of understand what's going on with the world. And I think it's going to be a really interesting exploration of how humanity deals with the threat of its own extinction. Next up, I have 2 books that are kind of in the creepy department. I don't know, I've been craving for some creepy stuff for some reason these days. So I picked up Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. This is one of the most well-known novels, and it's obviously very acclaimed haunted house story, I guess, and it's about 4 people, the owner of this mysterious house, as well as some paranormal scientist and his assistant and another woman, who come to this house to understand the paranormal better, or it starts off at least as an experiment of living in this house, and then things start going really wrong. This sounds really great, and I've heard so many things about this at this point. I really need to see what I make of this book. Still in the creepy department, I picked up Agatha Christie's The Hound of Death. This is a short story collection of different creepy supernatural stories by Agatha Christie. Now, if you know a bit about her work, she is not typically drawn to using a lot of supernatural stuff for her stories. Actually, in a lot of her novels, she criticizes, or through the narrative or through some characters that she creates, people who are very superstitious and always look for the supernatural answer before the natural answer. So I think this is also really going to be interesting to see where her mind goes when she kind of lets it do that, the stuff that she actually usually doesn't do. The buying of this book definitely comes from listening to one of my favorite podcasts. It's called All About Agatha, and if you like Agatha Christie, you should definitely give it a listen. And they covered a short story recently that is present in this collection called The Last Seance, so this is definitely what made me pick up the whole collection. Next up, I have quite a hefty book, and it's again a collection, a complete collection of all the stories written by Flannery O'Connor. She is a Southern American woman. I think she's from Georgia, and she of Irish ancestry, and she wrote a lot of stories, and I've heard so many things about her. She is said to write in this very hard, unapologetic and dark and sardonic style, and a lot of her stories are set in the rural south of the USA. I think one of her most well-known stories is A Good Man is Hard to Find, and this is definitely one I've been wanting to pick up for a really, really long time. So when I found this complete collection of her stories for really cheap in this really beautiful edition, I just thought I had to give it a go, and I can't wait to see if her writing is something that I will like, because it definitely sounds like this is something I would like. And finally, another book that was prompted by my favorite podcast is Agatha Christie's Secret Notebooks by John Curran. I'm currently reading this, and this is an analysis by John Curran, who is like an archivist and Agatha Christie expert. He had the privilege to look into Agatha Christie's notebooks that she left behind, in which she wrote a lot of things about how she wants to plan her stories, and she used these notebooks to develop her ideas or just write down random ideas that she ended up picking up years after. And he's going through the notebooks and giving insight about what her writing process was like, or might have been like. I'm 1/3 through, and I can say that it's definitely something for people who are really interested in her as a writer and are really familiar with her work. But I'm highly enjoying it, and I think I will the rest of it, especially because it has 2 unpublished short stories included as well, starring Hercule Poirot, so I'm really looking forward to finishing this book as well. Alright guys, these were the books I acquired lately, and I'm obviously excited to read all of them, and actually quite determined to actively take time to read and take more time to read in these times where things are just a bit all over the place. It feels really nice to have this collection of books waiting for you and all these opportunities to plunge into another world. So yeah, I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves and that you're reading great books, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!